999. 11. 10. 9, 10, 11.
Mak boleh lah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We seek your kind cooperation to put your mobile phones on silent mode before we begin with today's event. Now, may we please have your attention to view a brief safety briefing video.
Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Dengan sukacita, kami memohon perhatian kepada semua para jemputan pada majlis ini. Ini adalah video prosedur laluan kecemasan ICC. Dimaklumkan bahawa tiada latihan kecemasan akan dilakukan semasa majlis ini. Bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah, terdapat dua laluan kecemasan. Jika terjadinya kecemasan, sila beredar keluar menuju ke kawasan letak kereta C. Patuhi arahan pegawai keselamatan yang bertugas yang ditempatkan di setiap laluan kecemasan bagi membantu pergerakan keluar jika berlaku sebarang kecemasan. Bergerak dengan tenang, cepat dan selamat. Sekian disampaikan makluman prosedur laluan kecemasan bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah ini. Jawatan Kuasa Pandu ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih di atas perhatian bis kita. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the third day of the Brunei Mid-Year Conference and Exhibition MYCE 2022 Digital Technology Week. Before we begin, we would like to invite Yang Mulia Awang Muhammad Farhan bin Haji Mahidi to bless today's event with the recital of Surah Al-Fatihah and Doa Selamat.
Astaghfirullahalazim, 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 alladzi la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilaih. Ila hadratin Nabi Mustafa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ila arwahi walidina wa walidikum wa ila arwahil muslimin wal muslimat kafatan 'ammah. Al-Fatihah. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin.
Amin, 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 ya Rabbal Alamin. Just a gentle reminder, audience is able to participate in the conference by asking questions using Slido by scanning the QR code projected on the screen. The first topic for the third day, Digital Technology Towards a New Norm Conference, is Digitalization of Services, brought to you by Yang Mulia Mr. Toh Eugene, Deputy Director, Bus Financing, Investment and Governance, International Relations at Land Transport Authority, LTA, Republic of Singapore. The floor is yours, Mr. Toh.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues and delegates at the Brunei MYCE 2022 Digital Technology Week. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you. I am Toh Eugene from the Land Transport Authority, or LTA of Singapore, and I am very honored and privileged to have the opportunity today to share with you our experience in driving digitalization for service delivery and excellence here at LTA Singapore. My presentation today will cover two aspects. Firstly, on digitalization for service delivery, where I will share on how we have digitalized our customer services functions for motorists. And secondly, on digitalization for service excellence, where I will share on how we have enhanced our information and open data provision to the general commuting public to improve their overall commuting experience. Without further ado, I will touch on the first aspect, which is digitalization for service delivery. To provide a very brief background on why we embarked on our digitalization journey for our customer services functions, we operate in a complex ecosystem which comprises many stakeholders, almost 800,000 asset owners, 2,700 electronic service agents or motor dealers, almost all government agencies, and of course, LTA users. Annually, our Vehicle Registration and Licensing System, or VRLS, which is essentially our National Registry of Vehicles, deals with a very high volume of transactions at over 5 million transactions per year. It is simply not sustainable to expand manpower resources indefinitely to serve our customers, especially over the counters. As such, it is crucial that we transform the way our stakeholders interact with us. We therefore started our digitalization efforts in the early 2000s. To be in line with Singapore's Smart Nation vision, LTA Singapore is leveraging technology to develop people-centric solutions and enhance public service delivery. Our customers can go online to carry out vehicle-related transactions via the One Motoring portal and enjoy seamless and secure service. On service delivery, LTA engaged our customers and end users to redesign the user interfaces. As part of the improvement process, we talked to motorists and industry players to map out the business process and get their inputs on how the digital interfaces could be better designed. The One Motoring portal was also revamped to enhance users' experience. Leveraging SingPass two-factor authentication, or 2FA, our National Digital Identity and Authentication System, we were able to further re-engineer our processes. For example, in November 2018, we introduced 4 new digital services for the convenience of our customers, including transfer of vehicle ownership and deregistration of vehicle. Prior to these new digital services, registered vehicle owners had to transfer the ownership of their vehicle or deregister their vehicles at LTA's customer service center. If they were to transact through our electronic service agents, vehicle owners would have to first apply for a transaction PIN or TPIN from LTA. The transaction PIN served as an added assurance that the registered owner had indeed authorized the transaction. With the new digital services, vehicle owners no longer need to visit our customer service center in person. They can simply log in using their SingPass to authenticate and authorize the transactions. The 2FA login enhances the security of our digital services and allows vehicle owners to complete transactions themselves securely, anytime and anywhere. Due to the large number of such transactions, we were able to reduce more than 545,000 counter transactions and achieve time savings of over 774,196 man-hours a year. And as you can see on this slide, the full registration details of all vehicles can be easily accessed on the One Motoring portal, where previously all this information would have been captured on a vehicle log card and needed to be physically carried around in a vehicle at all times. In addition, all vehicle-related notifications are sent to vehicle owners via e-letters, where previously these were sent via hard copy letters. Vehicle owners are alerted to their e-letters via SMS notifications. E-letters can be easily accessed on One Motoring after vehicle owner logs in using his or her SingPass account. Today, most of the vehicle owners and motor dealers do not need to visit LTA's customer service center anymore and may transact online at the time and place of their convenience. 96% of vehicle-related transactions are now completed online. For customers who need assistance with their digital transactions, they may either contact LTA or visit our office, where we have trained service ambassadors to guide them through their transactions using iPads or handphone devices. To give you an idea of how the digital transformation has affected our frontline operations, by end 2019, we had closed a total of 13 frontline counters out of 30 counters originally. Today, we operate fewer than 5 frontline counters. We remain available to assist customers with complex transactions via an appointment system. Our digital transformation journey for our customer services functions does not end here. Looking ahead, we need to keep our systems up to date and future-proof it for the next 15 years to allow LTA to be technology agile. We also continue to streamline processes and improve our deployment time for policy changes and new service enhancements. Majority of VRLS transactions can be conducted online on a self-service basis. Examples include road tax renewal, vehicle registration, and transfer of vehicle ownership. Nonetheless, a small percentage of transactions still need to be done over LTA counters due to exceptional handling and other constraints. Some examples are transactions involving deceased vehicle owners, or where a vehicle owner does not have a SingPass account, for example, for foreign nationals. We will continue our efforts to digitalize the remaining services to allow more to conduct such transactions online. That ends my sharing on digitalization for service delivery. I will now move on to touch on the second aspect, which is digitalization for service excellence. The Land Transport Master Plan 2040, or LTMP 2040, is Singapore's land transport blueprint and was published in June 2019. It envisages a land transport system that is convenient, well-connected, and fast, and which is characterized by a commuter experience that is both gracious and inclusive, and contributes to better health and safer journeys for all. This vision is captured through the 3 themes of the LTMP 2040. Firstly, 20-minute towns and a 45-minute city. Secondly, transport for all. And thirdly, healthy lives, safer journeys. A key enabler of the LTMP 2040 is the timely provision of data and information to meet the diverse needs of various stakeholders and users within the land transport ecosystem. The majority of these are commuters, which range from expert users who have fanatically familiarized themselves with the entire public transport network, routine users who use public transport for their daily commute, to occasional and newbie public transport users such as tourists. We also need to cater to the needs of road and pavement users, such as drivers of private motor vehicles, motorcyclists, cyclists, and pedestrians. And among these, we need to pay particular attention to users with special needs, such as the physically handicapped and visually or hearing impaired, the elderly, parents with young children, and young children themselves. We are guided by 3 principles in the provision of transport information. Firstly, information must be timely, which means that users must have access to real-time information on the move, anytime and anywhere. Secondly, information must be comprehensive and integrated into common systems and platforms. Thirdly, information must be reliable, relevant, and simple to comprehend for users. In accordance with the above principles, we have made our real-time transport information available through 4 main touchpoints: LTA's very own mobile application, mytransport.sg, traffic news on social media, radio broadcasts of live traffic news, and on-site traffic advisory and parking information. These 4 touchpoints share one thing in common: That is that they all pull their data from the same data source, the LTA Data Mall, Singapore's one-stop land transport open data platform. We launched the LTA Data Mall in 2011 and revamped it in 2018. The LTA Data Mall publishes a wide variety of land transport-related datasets, both static and real-time, for enterprises, application developers, researchers, and the public, and makes this data available for free. By doing so, it promotes collaboration and co-creation of innovative land transport solutions across both the public and private sectors. Today, the LTA Data Mall has some 9,000 subscribers and sees some 800 million API requests per month. The LTA Data Mall has facilitated the development of a wide variety of some 54 mobile applications, mostly by third-party developers, which use the open data in the LTA Data Mall to provide information and services to their users. These include useful transport-related services from bus arrival times, taxi booking services, to information relating to live traffic conditions and parking availability around the central business district. The development of the LTA Data Mall required extensive collaboration across both the public and private sectors, as not all the data is owned by the LTA, and also because there was a need to develop new systems and technologies to capture information that was not already being tracked. For example, as part of our parking guidance system, or PGS, we provide real-time information on parking availability in commercial developments and shopping malls in the central business district and key regional nodes to help motorists make informed decisions about where they can park. This helps to avoid the unnecessary circulation of vehicles in their attempt to find a parking lot, which contributes to reduced traffic congestion, reduced vehicular pollution, and time savings for motorists. However, LTA does not own the parking availability data in commercial developments, which is proprietary information to the building developers or owners. Hence, LTA had to work with these private developers to pipe all this information using common data protocols from their systems to the LTA Data Mall. Even then, as this was done on a voluntary basis, there are several private developments that have not signed on to this initiative, although there is sufficient critical mass of participants to allow the PGS to be effective in meeting its objective. As a separate example, during the development of the LTA Data Mall, information about traffic speeds along expressways and major arterial roads were not being collected. While this information could possibly be collected by the installation of surveillance and monitoring systems along our highways and roads, such a solution would have been very costly to implement. Instead, LTA worked with our taxi companies to tap on the global positioning systems that were already installed on taxis and used the GPS information from these taxis to derive the traffic speed along these roads. Today, we call this system Traffic Scan, and together with PGS, it has become an integral part of our suite of intelligent transport systems solutions. The LTA Data Mall features both static and dynamic datasets. The static datasets include both infrastructure-related information and information relating to historical data and trends. Some examples of infrastructure-related information are the location of road traffic infrastructure such as lampposts, as well as the parking fees charged at various public car parks. Such information tends to remain invariant over long periods of time, although our databases will be updated as and when a change occurs. As for information relating to historical data and trends, one example is passenger volume at bus stops, which would potentially help advertisers in deciding which bus stops to focus on in their advertising campaigns to maximize their advertising exposure. On the other hand, our dynamic or real-time datasets, while much fewer in number, have proven to be a lot more popular with application developers. These are also the data sets that are accessed much more frequently by the public. For example, while I may be familiar with the possible driving routes that I could take to get to my office and do not have to consistently look these up, I will not know the actual traffic conditions each time I need to make a trip to the office. Hence, checking on the real-time traffic information before every trip could save me the headache from being stuck in a traffic jam. It is therefore unsurprising that the bulk of the API requests received by the LTA Data Mall are for our real-time data sets. I would also like to share some examples on the cradle-to-grave processes of making real-time open data available through the LTA Data Mall. My first example will focus on bus arrival times, which is the single most popular data set being requested on the LTA Data Mall, likely because public transport forms 2/3 of the mode share across all peak hour journeys, as at 2016. At the data collection stage, we work with our public transport operators, or PTOs, to obtain information on their bus schedules, bus dispatch, and bus routing in advance. We then combine this with real-time location data of the buses, which is sent via data transmitters installed on the buses to our back-end system for data processing, where our bus ETA system applies predictive analytics to forecast the bus ETA at various stopping points along the bus route. The outputs are then disseminated through the LTA Data Mall, where subscribers can easily pull the information and integrate it into their mobile applications. Before the LTA Data Mall, commuters had to constantly be on the lookout for whether their buses were arriving. With the provision of bus arrival information, commuters could either time their trips to minimize waiting time at bus stops, head off nearby to do something else while waiting for their bus, or work safely on their mobile devices without the fear of missing their bus. With this provision of data, public transport journeys have become a lot more pleasant, comfortable, and convenient. My second example will focus on real-time traffic data, which is the second most popular data set on the LTA Data Mall. On top of traffic scan and PGS that had already been discussed earlier, we also have several other data collection mechanisms, such as our Expressway Monitoring and Advisory System, or EMAS, which is a series of artificial intelligence-enabled video cameras to quickly identify traffic incidents along expressways and major arterial roads, junction eyes, and webcams to perform traffic surveillance at key traffic junctions, as well as our Green Link determining system, which uses a wire sensor at traffic junctions to determine the traffic volume in each direction. The data from these various sensors and video cameras are sent to our Intelligent Transport Systems Center, where data fusion techniques are applied to process the data into outputs that are also disseminated through the LTA Data Mall. And that ends my sharing on the LTA Data Mall. And before I end this presentation, I would like to share some concluding remarks. Digitalization has been a wonderful journey for us here at LTA Singapore, and it has brought us a lot of benefits. Many of these have been touched on earlier, but to briefly summarize these benefits, they include, to LTA, manpower savings and productivity gains, cost savings, happy and satisfied users, and stakeholder-led innovation through open data provision. As for users, the benefits are time savings from not having to physically transact over the counters, increase convenience, and improve user experiences. However, the digitalization journey is not an easy or straightforward one. It requires many elements to be in place. To name a few, these include imagining the desired end state from the user's perspective, a clear understanding of the system's perspective of our business model, rigorous and extensive consultation, engagement, and communications with users and stakeholders, a clear and understandable flexible change management plan, and lastly, and perhaps most importantly, strong management support. With this, I have come to the end of my presentation, and I look forward to engaging you on any questions that you may have during the question and answer session later. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Mr. To answer some questions from Slido.
Mr. To, this is Jasrina. I spoke to you earlier. So while we move on, while we wait to fiddle with the Slido and get it up and running, perhaps for the benefit of the audience here and some of our viewers online, could we maybe touch on a little bit on the journey before 2018? So we know that there are basically 3 elements that need to be in place when we embark on digitalization, namely the policy and regulation, the infra, and then the applications. So for LTA, was there a multi-stakeholder approach in the beginning, or the stakeholder engagements was largely led by LTA themselves?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. For us, this was an initiative that we as LTA, we wanted to undertake this ourselves. So we led this initiative, and all the stakeholder consultations and engagement were led by us. So basically, this meant that we had to organize the various stakeholders, conduct focus group discussions, understand, what it is they wanted, understand what are their challenges with the current way of doing things back then, as well as work with them to co-create and co-imagine the future and desired end state. So it was a very intense process of consultation, and as with most consultations, we don't get it right the first time. So the first time we engaged them, we had to understand what they needed, go back to the drawing board, and articulate what it is they actually wanted, and articulated the solution, and then go back, check with them again. And the process is quite iterative. So it took quite a while for us to get it right before we proceeded on to the implementation stage. So yes, it was quite a long journey. It was quite long drawn in itself.
Okay, thank you. So it was quite a few rounds of consultations before you could actually embark on implementing the applications by 2018. So can I check if you can see the Slido from your side?
Yes.
All right, so we'll run through the questions that they're on now. So the first one is, for the bus arrival real-time data, how is the backend system managed? Is it within LTA itself or by a third party?
Okay. So for the bus arrival real-time data, this data is, the creation of the platform was outsourced. So basically we got a third-party vendor to build the platform, but subsequently the management of the platform itself comes under LTA. And the considerations behind this was, that we wanted a greater control and basically to be able to manage the system a lot better, because there's some risk when you outsource it to a third-party vendor.
Okay, so the second question, were incentives provided to the public to move them towards transacting online? Did LTA have measures to stop the public from visiting the CSC?
Okay, so the truth is there were no incentives provided to the public to move them towards transacting online. I guess the benefit itself is innate, because instead of having to physically travel down to the customer service counter, queuing up, and then having to go home after that, being able to do everything at the press of a button with your mobile or digital device is actually a lot more convenient. So actually, it seems like there's a mutual alignment of interest between both the motorists as well as us to roll this out. So basically, as discussed earlier, we achieve manpower and productivity gains. I mean, manpower savings and productivity gains. At the same time, it's actually more convenient to the public, to transact online rather than to do it physically. Although, we still had some resistance. There were some older people, we tend to call them dinosaurs, because they don't embrace technology so quickly. They still prefer to come down physically. But although having said that, this all changed during COVID because there was a period of time during the lockdown where we had to physically close our counters simply because during the lockdown, non-critical services or services that could be moved online were not allowed to open. And this forced everyone to just move online anyway. And our observation is that once everyone moves online, and they actually like it because this was actually designed through multiple rounds of consultations. They like it, they love it, it's convenient. There's no reason why they should ever move back to transacting physically.
I suppose LTA also went through the effects of COVID, where digitalization was accelerated because of the conditions then. So there was a question, so that leads on to data security and authentication of the applicants. So how is this challenge addressed?
Okay, so I think there are two parts to this, right? Because the presentation earlier was in two parts. The first part talked about digitalization of vehicle services, and the second part was for open data platform. I think I'll address the open data platform first. That part is actually easier. The open data platform is a pool-only data protocol. So basically, yes, they have to set up an account in order to pull data, but there's no backflow of data into the server. So there's no issue with data security over there. Now, as for the digitalization of vehicle services, the data security is a real issue. And actually, because we were riding on the National Digital Identity and Authentication System, which is, we call it SingPass. And I understand in Brunei, you call it eDarussalam. For the SingPass system, actually, this was handled not by LTA. It is managed centrally by the Smart Nation office in Singapore. And we had to work very closely with them to ensure that. So actually, most of the data security, cyber security issues are taken care of by the Smart Nation office, or basically the people in charge of SingPass. And basically, we are just piggybacking onto their existing platform. So this was not something that we actively looked into during the digitalization process.
Okay, so we have time for a few more questions. So from the response you gave just now, there is a need for close collaboration with the relevant authorities to make sure that even though things are in place for continuity, it is important to have such collaborations. Maybe we can take the cloud computing question. What is LTA's perspective in the application of cloud computing and blockchain technology for data mall?
Okay, so on cloud computing and blockchain technology, this is not something we are currently considering. For various reasons. Firstly, the truth is we are quite a late adopter of technology. As any government agency, we need to be prudent and we need to be careful because this technology is still fairly new, at least from our perspective, and we really need to be able to understand the technology. So all the computing is currently performed on our servers rather than in the cloud. we don't really have a good understanding of what are the challenges or the risks in moving all this computing onto the cloud just yet. And I think this is something that we are still studying. Although having said that, actually our computing is not very intensive. So, as of now, our servers are still able to handle it. And to us, it's not like some very heavy duty kind of, AI technology or data science technology. It's just, it's more of data fusion, more than data processing. So the computing resources that we need is not very intensive, and there's actually not that much savings, that we get by migrating to the cloud. So yeah, as of now, it's something that we are still looking at, not very keenly, but whether we move on to it eventually, I think eventually, if everything moves towards the cloud, I think then eventually you'll be forced to adopt as well. But to answer the question, I think right now we don't see a need to do so.
All right. So we have time for one more question. We'll go to the one that's at the top. How did you overcome the internal people challenges when automating processes that were previously manual? So this brings us back to the earlier stages that we talked about earlier. So maybe you can zoom into the internal people challenges portion to answer this question, Mr. To.
Okay, so the internal people challenges, for us, actually, this mainly refers to, I think like the question correctly put it, it is internal people. So there's a lot of, internal resistance from existing staff. Yeah, so this then calls for a robust change management process. So basically, we actually need to appoint change managers to help to move the process along. Unfortunately, we need people to buy into the new vision and a new direction. And of course, as with all changes, there will be people who are resistant to the change. And unfortunately, it does mean that, we need to find some way to deal with these resistors, we call them. And this could, it doesn't sound very nice. It's a bit blunt, but you have to talk to them individually rather than to talk to them in a group, because when you talk to them in a group and they start getting a herd mentality, it actually becomes very dangerous for us to manage. You have to talk to them individually, understand what their concerns are, and do your best to bring them on board. If that fails, then unfortunately, the reality is that we have to find some way to move them along, transfer them out to another agency, for example. But that is something really that we employ as a last resort. But as far as possible, we do our best to persuade people, convince them, show them what's in it for them, sell them the vision, and bring them along as much as possible.
Right, so it sounds like there's both internal and external, because earlier you were mentioning that you had the user problems with the elderlies and certain groups, and you just shared how the internal people challenges were to be managed. So I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A session. Thank you very much, Mr. To. I will hand it over to our MC now.
Thank you, Mr. To, for sharing with us on how Singapore has leveraged on digitalization to provide a better service to the public. Looking at all the statistics and the picture showing an almost empty customer service center in 2021, last year, means that the uptake of digitalization by the public is going very well. Once again, thank you, Mr. To, for taking our time to share with us. And we hope that in the future, we'll have the chance to meet you physically, either here or in Singapore, to share your experiences with us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the next topic, we would like to invite participants to take a quick refreshment at the back of this hall and return back to your seats, as we will resume the conference at 3:40 p.m.
Check 1, 2.
Could I just leave this here, or?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
The mic is already on.
I can just leave this here for a minute.
Your phone, will you be putting it here?
I think I'd better put it in my purse.
Because yesterday one was already had it there. You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. So I'll just leave this here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we seek your kind cooperation to take your seats as the session will begin shortly.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Just a gentle reminder, audience is able to participate in the conference by asking questions using Slido by scanning the QR code projected on the screen. Next presentation for the Digital Technology Towards a Transformed New Norm Conference is Digitalization Journey. And for that, we would like to invite Yang Mulia Dayang Sofia Haji Umar, Digitalization Manager at Brunei Shell Petroleum BSP. The floor is yours, Ms. Sofia.
Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. My name is Sofia Umar. If you haven't heard just now, I'm the Digitalization Manager and Technology Lead for Brunei Shell Petroleum Company. So what we're going to do this afternoon is to give you some insights and shared learnings on our digital transformation journey in BSP that we've been on since 2019. And our hope is that you get a bit of few ideas or nuggets or perspective in terms of how you want to go and follow on your own digital transformation journey as well. Just an introduction on BSP. I know many of you know the company, but I think it would be good to just refresh what our business is about. So we are a oil and gas company, what we're known as an upstream business. We've been in the country for over 90 years. And we are a joint venture between Shell PLC, that's headquartered in London, and the government of Brunei. We have around 4,000 employees and another 10 to 15,000 contractors on our facility at any given time. And we are responsible for exploring and producing hydrocarbons, oil, natural gas, from our offshore and onshore facilities. We do this through very deep technical skills, ranging from petroleum engineering, geoscience, and even other surface engineering disciplines, to even non-technical functional capabilities like contracting and procurement, legal, finance, and HR. So what you'll see here is BSP Bersatu, our refreshed strategy that we introduced early this year. And you'll see that it reaffirms our responsibility to our shareholders and to the country to deliver hydrocarbons safely, responsibly, and reliably. The reason why I'm also showing this to you is because there's a couple of areas that it sets the tone a bit different from previous years. So first of all, it acknowledges the changing environment that we work in. So we do need to be concerned about the energy transition and look for opportunities. The other part is that how we deliver the hydrocarbons is really essential, and that's becoming increasingly important. And it is in that space that digital transformation has a huge impact for us. So you'll see in there that we're looking for digitally enabled ways of working. And of course, we do this through our highly skilled employees and upskilling and future-proofing our Orang Kitani. So my agenda for today is to give you an overview of our digital transformation journey. I'll explain our digital capabilities and learnings from that journey so far. So if you look at our definition of digital transformation, it just looks like everyone else's definition, I admit. However, what is different about it is that it has a significance for our own company. So, if you look at our definition, it says that digital transformation is a key enabler to sustaining and delivering outstanding performance. So we consider it as a performance enabler. We also believe that it addresses our business problems by solving them through digital solutions to make work faster, for instance, by automating the mundane or transactional activities so that our technical experts can focus on the more business value-adding work. We also make work cheaper by ensuring cost reduction or cost avoidance, and make work better, for example, by removing personal bias and focusing on the data and understanding what the data is telling us. However, to ensure real digital transformation, you need to have a stake in it, and our stake is building in-house digital capabilities. And we do this by ensuring that our community is upskilled in digital skills and embedding new capabilities like data science, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Ultimately, our goals are to establish a paperless automated process and to ensure that our people are safe, so they don't need to travel, for example, to remote or offshore locations by leveraging the data that we have. This means that we need to be more data-driven in terms of our insights, and of course that means that we need to build more new skills. In addition to our technical oil and gas skills, the digital skills become increasingly important for us. A lot of people ask us, so what's different compared to years ago when we introduced all these IT solutions? Compared to today? And of course the answer is there's a lot of things that are different. The underlying reason that there is different is first of all, our access to those technologies and those skills has become more easier, and our relationship and the evolution of data has changed as well. So BSV uses around 500 terabytes of data daily. We have capacity for twice as many to store, that's 1 petabyte. But you can imagine it's humanly impossible for us to go through all that data at one go. And what we need to do is absorb and make sense of that huge amount of data. What we have also learned is that experience alone is not enough. So traditionally in our business, we've been so used to saying that to build new skills, you need experience, and that's still important. But what we have found, because of our growth in data production, experience is just one piece of that puzzle. So what we have also discovered is that when you're collating the different sources of data, integrating it, analyzing it, and making sense of it, more often than not, we're having to employ data through digital solutions. And at every step, we require digital solutions to get us there through the terabytes of data that we use on a daily basis. So what is our nature of BSV's digital solutions? It's wide-ranging, and I've got a few examples for you here. So data integration can be data visualization, or even simple things like dashboards. We have done this through off-the-shelf solutions. And of course, the value that it brings by bringing people together around a dashboard, for example, no matter how simple that sounds, is that it creates that one source of the truth. Everyone looks at that one source of the truth and can take insights and conclusions from it. We've also found by taking dashboards, for example, through off-the-shelf solutions, we have saved 60% of costs from doing the alternative. Another area that we have invested in is automation. Automation is about automating the mundane transactional activities. So an example that we have applied on this is the geophysics quantitative interpretation workflow. I know it's a mouthful, but the workflow that looks at certain subsurface attributes takes around 3 months on a manual basis. And what we've done is to create a bespoke solution that takes that 3 months and actually narrows it down and automates the process to 1 or 2 days. And a lot of people ask us, well, why would you do that? What happens to the geophysics staff that we have? And the reality is they love it, because they don't need to focus on that transactional activity. They're there to do more value-adding work and focus on more complex interpretation that we need them for. The other area is optimization. So you can imagine in our onshore and offshore activities, we've got the deep technical capabilities, and around it we have non-technical support services that helps us to explore and produce our hydrocarbons. And we've got so much activities going on, onshore, offshore, the logistics around it. And what we have done is apply an automated heuristic optimizer to help us plan better. This planning work on a normal basis, or in the manual terms, takes us 1 to 2 months to achieve. With the automated heuristic optimizer, it took us only 25 minutes. Again, I know people would ask, why would we do this? And the reality is that we need to get to the conversation of what do we do next from what the results show us. And that conversation is more in depth and more richer when you're able to take away that kind of transactional activity. The other part here that you see is predictive analytics, and it involves some form of machine learning. So the more complex part of AI. It allows us to plan the work better. And for example, we looked at predictive analytics to ensure that, to predict possible failures in our equipment. And that means that it helps us to reduce the delays of production. And if you can understand how much our shareholders, our customers, the country rely on our production, even that 1 or 2% reduction in our delays in producing hydrocarbons means so much. And that is an area that we have started to invest in as well. So we produce these range of digital solutions either by ourselves or in partnership with others. And in doing so, we've learned that it's not only important to understand what to deliver, but how we deliver it. And so that comes to my next slide. So if we were to talk about our digital transformation journey that have started in 2019, and how many opportunities we looked at, we started with around 100 opportunities. And if we look back, we can say like, well, that's a bit too much, and we would certainly agree with you. And as we matured in our journey, we started to look at more prioritization against what provides more business value and what is a credible digital solution that can be embedded so that it actually impacts our processes, our ways of working. And if we were to cluster how we actually delivered those digital solutions, we can cluster it into 4 themes that you see over here. So if I take it from the top, delivering end-to-end value. It actually requires a structured process and approach to how we deliver it, what we deliver, and when. And this largely starts with the business problem we're solving. Framing the business problems to solve sometimes takes a while, especially when you start involving more stakeholders. And as more stakeholders get involved, the business problems start evolving. But once you nail it, then you understand what kind of digital solution you truly need for the organization. And once we've landed on a project terms of reference, for example, we essentially have an agreement to pursue a digital solution opportunity. And our preference is to execute a proof of concept or pilot project. Some organizations call it minimum viable product, phase 1, phase 2, and so on. But for us, that proof of concept project should last around 3 to 5 months. And what we're after is that digital solution a credible solution in our own environment? Sometimes the same solution in different environments doesn't respond the same because we can be a different organization altogether. So what we're asking is it a credible solution for BSB's specific environment? And if it is, what would it take to make it a successful implementation altogether? Sometimes the solution is not credible, and we would encourage people to fail it during this stage before we start considering the scale-up and implementation altogether. And that brings me to my next category, applying new ways of working and in terms of the process and behaviors. So what we are very used to is applying or hearing about the Scrum and Agile methodology. And I know for some organizations that's been around for a long time, including BSB, the whole application of Scrum and Agile methodology is quite tasking. But we have found that it actually works in especially multifunctional project teams, for example, during the proof of concept or even longer, that have a defined scope of work that needs to be delivered within a defined period. And in the process, we've also learned that people like some of the attributes that they've learned during the Scrum and Agile methodology and try to incorporate that into their own day-to-day work with their own natural teams. We've actually introduced Scrum methodology for our digitalization team's daily stand-up as well. And it takes us 10 minutes to go through that ceremony every day, even though each and every one of us speak, which is quite incredible because, you know, a lot of the times when you go into projects, when everyone speaks, it takes at least 30 minutes, 60 minutes, so on. But we've nailed it down to 10 minutes because we know everyone else is busy doing their own work, and we made that promise, and we deliver on that behavioral expectation. The other area that you see in terms of how we deliver digital solutions here is about building new technical skills. So I talked about data scientists. It's a new career path for Shell and BSB. We've introduced it only a few years ago, and if you want to meet some of our data scientists, you can meet them tomorrow. We're having a workshop, and we're partnering with the Google's Developers Group and the Women Tech Makers to do those 2 workshops in the morning and afternoon. And for us, it's a multidisciplined skill set. You need to know math, statistics, programming, domain understanding and experience, and understand data analytics. And what we have found is that it helps us to produce digital solutions even by ourselves or even in partnership with others because we understand the concept of how that digital solution gets produced. The other thing that you may find interesting, though, is that apart from the deep technical skill sets of a data scientist, we have engineers who can also program. And we call them citizen data scientists. They have no aspiration to become data scientists themselves, but apply programming to their huge data sets to come up with analytics that they need for their work on a day-to-day basis. And some of our savviest coders, some of our savviest programmers are not only our data scientists in the company, but also subsurface engineers altogether. And that alone is quite impressive, how especially the new generation have come up and feels that this is pretty much a normal tool set that they've come along over the years. The other thing I want to talk about is we do extensive upskilling with our wider community through online learning platforms, anything that works, virtual learning, face-to-face learning, and we introduce tools like for visualization and data analytics for them to make it easier, even programming. And we also do hackathons on a regular basis. The interesting part of hackathon is that you can introduce digital skills to the community and members of that community that would never have thought of doing programming in their day-to-day work. But just sparking that interest can be quite powerful. And in the hackathon, sometimes the ideas that come out of it, the projects that come out of it, becomes and evolves and becomes a bigger idea that we've been looking for. The last thing on this slide that I want to talk about is working within an ecosystem. So we have an internal and external ecosystem to work with, and without that collaboration and relationship, it will be almost impossible to implement the things that we do. So first of all, we have digital champions. There are a representative 10 leaders across the organization where we have more strategic discussions about. And one of the things that we've done with them early last year was to do a prioritization of all our opportunities, including the business problems that we're solving. So we started with that. We prioritized the opportunities under the top business problems we're solving. And that is the must-do projects that we still hold on to today. And we have gone through the funnel and matured a lot of that funnel through different phases. And I think that part is important because without that sponsorship, it's really difficult to embed some of the changes in the ways of working that we're looking for. The other thing that we've also started to look at is how the business can be increasingly involved in the digitalization effort. So it can't just be the leaders. We've got business product owners that are interested not only in the proof of concept, the pilot phase, but they're also keen stakeholders to want to see that digital solution embedded into their organization so that it has an impact in the process and the ways of working as well. We also have external partnerships, and this is important. Sometimes those external partnerships has nothing to do with wanting to produce a tangible product for us. That external partnership sometimes has to do with advice, shared learnings, understanding how others have done it before us, and sometimes even taking stock and sharing notes with each other. So we do that on a regular basis with other Shell operating units, for example, and with other organizations in the country. So what key learnings have we gained so far since 2019? Well, first of all, digitalization is truly business-led, it's business-driven, because it starts with the business problem we're solving. It can't be that the digital solutions lead. There's no such thing. And the part of purposeful collaboration is also key. So when people get involved in our proof of concept, our pilot projects, any part of our digitalization effort, we consider them all doers. So if you're expecting to come to a project meeting and you think all you need to do is listen and talk, that doesn't work for us. You have a specific role to play in terms of the delivery of that digital solution altogether. Another thing is, of course, I talked about the internal skill building. That is a continuous improvement. We've learned along the ways in terms of how the community responds. And we have found that certain things work, certain things doesn't, and we just improve on our digital curriculum altogether. Learners' mindset and psychological safety is something I know that the digitalization community have always been accustomed to. It's also called growth mindset. It is an increasing concept in the oil and gas company that we're part of. It focused on the concept of learning. constantly learning new. So talked about our data scientists, that they have deep technical expertise. The reality is, though, regardless of what they have done in the past, in previous projects, when they go into new projects, they have an understanding that they're going to have to learn new, learn fast. And that is an attribute that, of course, we need to help our organization, the wider community, to get used to. I have found that, I can say this because I'm in the older generation, but I have found that the younger generation are very accustomed to this idea that there is a constant need to upskill themselves and get onto their online platforms and be able to capture new ideas and those new subject matters quite quickly. We do need to give a bit of help to others as well, and that's where our responsibility lies. The other part is Agile and Scrum works. I know some organizations struggles with this concept, but it certainly does work. And the key is that it works so long as everyone is in that part of the group are willing to take a chance in it, because there are certainly elements of Agile and Scrum methodologies that we can learn from. This comes to my last slide. So, all in all, digital transformation is certainly not about the technologies. It is about people and organizational capabilities. It's about us, it's about our attitude towards change and our willingness to accept change in the most littlest ways. So learning new concepts, new ways of working, and willingness to apply the different digital solutions that make our work faster, better, cheaper. It also has an ability to create a sense of belonging. Because we are ensuring that there's aligned objectives. A lot of people use Agile thinking that surely that means that it means that we can change so frequently, but it doesn't. It's a very structured process in terms of making sure that we have that alignment in terms of objectives and delivery. Recognition and feedback is something that we have definitely learned even more as we go through the digital transformation journey. In a lot of the projects that we take on, the cross-functional teams, because they're focused on a very specific aligned objectives within a short period of time, need to establish very trusting relationships. And so when we go into ceremonies like retrospectives, for example, and we're actually giving feedback and recognition to each other. And of course, that takes time, but once you get it, it works very well for the team and individually. Impactful contribution is something that we are really keen to embed, because first of all, you're going into the digital solution or the digital opportunity because you're actually responding to a business problem we're solving. And that means you're delivering business value through that opportunity. And of course, learning new is a constant that stays with us in the digitalization space. And the ability to learn, wanting to learn fast are attributes that we truly value in the digital transformation journey. In summary, what matters is more about people rather than the technologies or digital solutions itself. So that's all I had for you, and of course, I'm more than willing to receive any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Ms. Sophia to answer some questions from Slido.
Yeah. Okay. So, echo. No. Okay. Okay. So, okay, Slido's up, but I did have one basic question to kick it off. So it's for BSP. Development programs for the people are in place. Okay, so you even went to share that digital transformation was defined as a key enabler to achieve outstanding and sustained performance. So mindset is in place, right? You also mentioned learn new, learn fast. So it also sounds like the common challenges with resistance to change also exist, but it sounds like it's manageable. So for the programs, to make sure that the skills are up to date with the ever-changing technology or digitization requirements, who leads that? Who initiates that? Is it the subject matter experts or you call them champions? Or would it be the human resource department? I understand that your background is also HR. So where does it start, right?
So your question is actually very similar to the top question over here. Is driving digitalization a top-down or bottom-up responsibility? So if I can answer it this way, it's actually both, right? Because you know, it's essential to have that leadership sponsorship and that drive to make sure that we see you know, certain upskilling, interest in prioritization in terms of our learnings and understanding that we make space for that upskilling or even that digitalization opportunity. But in all honesty, and I'm sure my colleagues in the room can agree, I have not seen, you know, when we talk about business problems we're solving, a lot of the times is your employees, the ones who have to work that process and that activity on a day-to-day basis that can find, that can identify those areas of opportunities for us. So it's both, because first of all, it impacts your day-to-day activities that our wider community understands more of. And you need that leadership to make space for this subject altogether.
Right, so flexibility would be key, right? Because you'd have development programs in place, and then it would also have to cater to changes that occur at any time.
That's true, yeah. And also with the type of learning that is on offer for the digitalization space, it changes so rapidly. And so the concept that we can do everything in-house is also becoming increasingly more difficult. So it is basically a partnership and understanding what's available outside of the organization too.
Great, so synergy is key.
Yeah.
Right, so we can move on to the question on the Slido. The first one there is, how does BSP bridge between the technical oil and gas skills and knowledge and those required for digitalization?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we do have quite strong sets of competencies and skills that we require our technical experts to be to acquire during their careers. And what you start to see, though, is that the people who set the tone and expect the type of competence development from those technical professionals is starting to also talk about digitalization and skills required for them to gain in addition to their core technical know-how. So it's not something that we have to do purposefully sometimes. It's also led by the businesses responsible for that technical engineers, for example, to get up to speed in both their core domain as well as the digital skills. So this is a joint effort going forward.
Okay. So I think the next question there, we've sort of touched on it, but would you want to add anything else? It says culture and mindset takes years to change. What's the most efficient ways that BSP adopt?
Yeah, I think for a long time, because I did organizational effectiveness as well, and for a long time in organizational effectiveness, what you're taught is that culture takes years to embed because it affects behavioral change. But the reality is, with digital solution, they can shift your behaviors by applying those digital solutions. So I'll give you a really simple example. Some of our cars make funny noises when we turn to the next lane without signaling to warn us that we haven't signaled first before we move to the next lane. So that is a form of trying to change your behavior to signal when you're about to move to the next lane. And so that principle is very key. So for us, we also try to embed the digital solution so that it doesn't take years for you to suddenly make that behavioral shift. It actually is part and parcel of your work day-to-day process, and therefore changing the ways of your behavior and your responsibility and accountability of that area. I'll give you an example in the workplace. So we have a form, a digital form for our operators to go through their operating rounds. And the responsibility of that operator is to fill out the form when it is required and is on a daily basis. So that actually changes your behavior from thinking, oh, I need to fill out this form when I get back to the office or the control room. You have to fill out the form at the time when you're actually out in the field. And it also gathers the information and data more faster and better. Okay.
Yep, so that also has an element on the individuals themselves to be mindful of their behavior and being open to change as well, because it resonates with the first presentation where change management is also key to adoption of digitalization. So the next question is, how does digitization approach help lower your carbon footprint?
Yeah. So in terms of the energy transition, this is definitely an enabler for that, simply because it helps to track carbon footprint, for example, do data analytics against it. And so that is just a few examples. We are actually, when you look at what Shell PLC, headquartered in London, have talked about in terms of their digital transformation journey, that is going to be the key enabler for their energy transition. We are a bit not in that going as further as that, because what we're also trying to do is use digitalization to be more productive in our day-to-day work in terms of our delivering our hydrocarbons. And that also means that it plays a role in our energy transition opportunities going forward. Okay.
Okay. All right, so we have time for one last question. We'll take the second one from the top. Oh, it moved up, right? Okay. How can these concepts be translated into a process to define opportunities for digitization within current business processes?
Yeah. So it's going to be not one size fits all. And so even within BSB, it's not one size fits all. However, we're a very process-oriented organization, so we know the process steps, and we know where the opportunities lie within those process steps. And so it means actually looking at your day-to-day work processes and see what that workflow looks like and understand where those digital solutions can help to make things faster, automate things, or even provide some more data analytics or data insights to that whole process. So it is quite a tasking work, but in actual, once you get to understand your process and understand where the opportunities lie, then that is where the solutions become even more effective. Okay.
Right. So that ties to something on your presentation earlier regarding predictive analysis, perhaps, right?
Yes, that's
yeah.
right.
Okay, so that's all we have time for right now. I will hand over to our MC. Thank you very much, Ms. Sophia, for your insightful presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sophia, on your insightful presentation on BSB's journey towards digitalization. From the presentation, Ms. Sophia has pointed out that digital transformation is a key enabler, and this was also mentioned by yesterday's presenters. We hope that BSB's journey has encouraged other industry players to move towards digital transformation. Next up, we would like to invite our moderator, Yang Mulia Albert Wong, Business Development Manager, Dynamic Technologies, and panelists, Yang Mulia Wan Mahathir Wan Alwi, Head of Business Development, Yang Mulia Chandana Atauda, Head of Solutions, and Yang Mulia Nur Hidayah Haji Osman, Change Management Lead, to kick off the next panel, From Survive to Thrive.
Thank you to the Master of Ceremonies, and my name is Albert Huang. I'll be the moderator for this afternoon session. So joining me today is Wan Mahathir Wan Alwi and also Hidayah, who will give the introductions in a while. So what I would like to mention today is that our event, from our session, From Survive to Thrive, what's next for your digital transformation? We would like to have it as an informal chat, right? So rather than having us talking all the time, maybe we would like you to join us on Slido as well, or if you'd like to raise your hand and ask questions or give comments, feel free, right? We'll present on 3 topics today, 3 questions for discussion today, and we'll really love all of you to join in. Thank you. Right, so joining us today, Wan Mahathir Wan Alwi is our Dynamic Head of Business Development. He has over 15 years of experience in projects and service delivery management, design and application and system development. Also, our lovely change management lead, Ms. Nur Hidayah Haji Osman. She has a background in psychology and behavioral analysis. Over 10 years working in the public sector, collaborating with various stakeholders, developing policies and creating social impact. And now making sure that the people element of our systems and our projects are taken care of. Right. Thank you, Wan and Hidayah, for joining us today. So for today, we would like to start with this lessons learned from the pandemic. It might be a paradox, right? It's like the pandemic is already over, right? We are even over the endemic stage already. So why are we still talking about the pandemic? Why are we still talking about digital transformation during the pandemic? Reason being, there are lessons learned in every stage. And according to a McKinsey survey, adoption of digital transformation efforts has sped up by 3 to 4 years due to COVID-19. And many of them has long-term stickability or effects on the organizations. We are also looking at we are also looking at the emergence of digital services that has sped up by 7 years due to COVID-19. So all this resulted in things that we have not seen in Brunei before, or at least it's seldom lah, huh? So like food and medicine delivery, online forms, and payment. So it's like innovation became a necessity, right, during the COVID-19. So my first question to Wan and Hidayah will be, what are your views on public services and business ability to digitalize their operations during the pandemic? So of course, yes, Wan, please start. And if any members of the audience would like to chip in, please feel free on Slido or just grab a mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Okay, so basically, during this pandemic, these trying times, many organizations and many businesses have tried many ways to adapt or adopt digital transformation efforts or digitization efforts, okay? In terms of changing their changing the processes, business models, or even business practices. Their people are being retrained, and all in an effort to adapt to the trying times. Okay, but the key point to take in is their success depends on how well they manage these changes, how well they manage to adapt to the needs of the services or the people they serve. Okay, so if they have adapted well, then they not only have managed to survive, but they have managed to thrive as well.
Right, thank you, Wan. So what Wan was saying is actually, if I can summarize, is that the key success factor to the success of the key success factor in sustainable digital transformation is actually how well we adapt, how well we manage the change, right? And that brings us right on to Hidayah, because how well we, that means how well the people. Hidayah.
Okay. Thank you, Albert. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum. So what we can see is that in the beginning, during the pandemic, it was quite hard for businesses and organizations. I think there was a lot of struggle, especially with overhead costs. But what we noticed throughout the pandemic was that those organizations and businesses that survived and also thrived during pandemic are the ones who were able to, one, recognize the needs of customers and the citizens. For example, although there were restrictions, but we still needed to renew our driver's license, still needed to top up our medicine, and we still needed to do our shopping, and even as basic as daily groceries, because there were so many limitations for the sake of public safety. And secondly, what we noticed was what was different, what showed, or what actually that was demonstrated by businesses and also public services, was that they were capable of changes during this trying times. Even though it was challenging, but they were able to rethink and be innovative and creative on how can they still maintain delivering the services, delivering the products, but at the same time balancing public safety. So this was something that was very interesting to see. And now, not only did these existing businesses evolved, but we also see a lot of other business opportunities and also opportunities for income, even as simple as I think this is also our best friend, the runners. We always have a list of runners already, because that's how it was very interesting, and it showed a lot of potential on what businesses and the public sector in this country is capable of. Okay.
Thank you, Hidayah. So we actually look into the changes in business models, in strategies, and also basically the thinking behind the organizations when businesses are digitalizing their operations. So I see that we do have a question. We do have a question on how to ensure that the cybersecurity or network security aspect of digital services is properly looked into if digitalization is done in a rush. So, Wan, would you like to take this question now or later on? Later on, huh? So we'll focus on the two questions of the agenda first. So building on what Hidayah has already mentioned just now, okay, and also what Wan mentioned just now, the people aspect of transformation is basically the most important. And actually, according to the same McKinsey survey that I quoted earlier on, across the developed countries in Asia, 80% of 80% of customer interactions across developed countries in Asia, like Japan, Korea, Singapore, China, have increased digitally by 80%. Okay, that means it's like most businesses would expect to interact with their customers digitally 80% of the time, rather than over the counter. Okay, so bringing us back to Brunei, right? So based on our experience and our lessons learned, what do you think are the customers in Brunei's expectations about online services? So, so specifically moving over the counter services to online, right? So Hidayah, would you like to start?
Okay, thank you, Albert. First things first, I think what we all witnessed was our own capability to adapt or to be more open and accepting on online transactions. Because of those limitations during the pandemic and the restrictions, everybody expected things to go online. So even those who were not familiar of how to do things online had to learn and was able to learn. For example, I think everybody's using their phone. Now there's very little instances where we go out without our phone because we have to scan everywhere. And yeah, that's very important. And using new apps, because there were a couple of apps being introduced and everybody got on board. And also, this is what we also noticed, that this was irrespective of age and background. It didn't even matter whether you're young or you're more on the senior side. Everybody went on board. So that was what the customers, the people, the citizens in Brunei have shown. And secondly, even our habits have changed. Earlier we were talking about how cultures change and sometimes it takes years. Apparently, when you're in certain situations which forces you to do certain things, it can take a few months or even sometimes days. So because what's more important is to understand how people go through change, because definitely any change, good or bad, is going to be disruptive. Even the happy news, you get so excited, but after that, it's like, oh, okay, what have I got myself into? So it's normal. So the most important thing is, how do we bring everybody along the journey of that change? And another habit, customers' habits that have changed is now they're expecting things to be available online. Although some counters are open, but they will still ask, ada delivery, ada online. So there's always that question, is there a way for this to be, can my insurance be sent to my home instead? Can I do it online? So this is how our habits have changed as well. And what's another important thing is, I'd like to reiterate and emphasize as well, is that our people is capable of change. And now that, in terms of, because we're talking about digital transformation, maybe initially we thought that it would be too challenging or there would be too much resistance when it comes to digitalization because it's something new and may require a lot of upskilling. But we have shown that we are capable. What we need is just a very thorough and detailed change management strategy on how do we ensure that everybody is taken into account. Because one change, it may be the same, it will impact different people differently. So that's something that we need to take into account when we try to develop and to make sure that everybody is on board. So I think the main question here is, how can we leverage on this opportunity when everybody is already, the readiness of people when it comes to going online, using technology? Okay, that's...
Thank you, Hidayah. So basically that actually answers the first question already. Spot on, Hidayah. So how, leaving behind those who are not connected or unable to use these services, so how can this be addressed? And you answered that perfectly by having customer trust and openness, and readiness and adaptability. That's the second. And also building good habits, or rather building habits, right, on dependence on the online or delivery of digital services. Right, maybe we can move on to one. On what tools we can use to promote this kind of digital customer services one?
Okay, before determining what tools or services that you need to determine what are you trying to provide, what services are you trying to provide, or what business are you trying to do. Then you need to assess in terms of the fit for purpose. Okay, take home business, for example. A lot of home businesses now have gone through Instagram or Facebook to publicize their products. And then they have also utilized, online banking services that have already been provided by banks such as PIB, Type, or our local banks. And so this is, it may be simple, but it can be considered a digital transformation because they have transformed how their business works, how their business model works. Okay, so when you say digital transformation, it doesn't always have to be a big change. It just has to be a change in how you perform your activities, in taking into account your business model, your business processes, and leveraging on technology to do it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Wan. So that is basically, to summarize, is a controlled journey, right? So phase by phase, we do things meaningfully, consciously, mindfully, thinking of the causes and the effects of every step of the digital transformation efforts, so that we don't rush headlong into something that we may regret later on, but we make sure that it is in a controlled manner. Right, so we have questions of employees engagement digitally, which is also coincides with our third agenda, which is what are the benefits and challenges for employees working from home or online during the pandemic, and how can this be leveraged for digital workspaces moving forward? So maybe we'll start with Hidayah again. Ladies first.
Thank you, Albert, thank you. Okay, one of the key benefits that was seen during this pandemic in terms of working or digital workspace is the capability to expand our outreach. So this is like my trouble when it comes to meetings, when it comes to, when we're at the office, it's always difficult to do meetings because we have to fight over meeting rooms. But when we went online, okay, let's schedule a Teams meeting. So it's very easy to just schedule, check everybody's calendar. So that made it more productive. And I was able to, at least personally, I was able to talk to my team in their own groups more than I was able to do when I was face-to-face, just because of the limited physical space. And then even for the work that we do, providing training for our clients, we were able to do it online because everybody is already doing things online. So things were still able to, we were able to do more. Actually, we were able to do more when we have, during this pandemic time, just because we had a concrete and strong digital workspace. So it didn't matter much whether we were working from home or working from the office, as long as it was a digital workspace that was strong, we were still able to achieve our business goals. And on the other side of the coin is that the challenges for what we saw, just an observation within this country, is that for those for businesses and organizations which had limited online infrastructure, technological infrastructure, some processes took longer, or some process was not available, or services not available, products not available. So that's the other side of the coin. So how can these experiences be leveraged in terms of developing that digital workspace? I think going back to the first two things that we talked about, businesses and organizations are ready for technology. People in Brunei, customers, citizens are ready for technology. So the most natural thing to do right now is just move forward. How do we move forward? And I think this is linking to something about digital transformation. Which areas should you be focusing on?
And the last question also.
Oh, yes. First things first. What is the business goals? What are our business goals? What are organizational goals? That's how we decide on what technology or what sort of digital transformation we want to do. Because technology is there not for the sake of it being there because it looks nice and pretty. It is there to assist us and facilitate and support us in achieving our business goals. So that's how, so it's actually at the end of the day, as Albert mentioned earlier, it's about the people, the organization, the people in the organization, the people that they serve. In terms of digital workspace, again, what's most important is before we want to proceed or in developing this digital transformation is how are we going to plan it out in terms of how are we going to involve the people who are in the organization and outside the organization, because they, again, as mentioned earlier, they are impacted differently. So we need to take them into account. We need to hear their feedback, what is it they actually need, what's working, what's not working, because we don't want to do something that's already doing well and then, you know. And then, yes, I think a thorough communication and training strategy, a thorough change management strategy, together with the digitization aspect would be best to ensure that whatever initiative that we do is sustainable, sustainable and also relevant.
Thank you, Hidayah. So enabling the people, right? That's what you mentioned also, because from what you see from organizations across the country, there are a few organizations which may not have the infrastructure, systems, or processes that can help their employees to adapt well to the digital workspaces. So one, in terms of your opinion, right? What can be done to address all these digital gaps for workspaces?
Okay. In terms of digital gaps, these digital gaps, when you say digital workspaces, don't get misled into thinking you have to get a full-fledged workspace where everything is configured for you. Okay. You can also utilize tools that you already utilize in your day-to-day work. Okay. You can use Outlook for communication. You can use Zoom or Teams for online meetings. You can even send your PDF documents over for signatures through either email or Telegram or WhatsApp. Okay, all these are in terms of, so the tools are important, but what is more important is how you plan out, like Hidayah has mentioned, how you plan out how to utilize them, okay, in concert to allow you to function your day-to-day in a virtual setting. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Wan. So maybe if I can add to that, and also to answer one of the questions in terms of the first question, where the pandemic has showed that working from home is a realistic and viable option. Is our organization willing to explore this way of working, and is it the future of working in our opinion? So this is interesting because, and to add on to what Wan said just now, balancing between remote work and organizational culture is very delicate sometimes, right? I mean, when we first started our digital workspaces, when the pandemic started, we were concerned as well. As a company, we were concerned about what is the effect on the morale, on the productivity of our teams. But I think we have done our best. We prepared, we sent out communications, and we, as team leads, we also asked how our team's doing during the remote work experiences. What else we could do? We actually trusted the employee, and we make sure that there is productivity checks as well, timesheets, yeah. So but as team leads, I think we need to trust. We need to give our trust to the employees that they are managing their time, they are doing their work, and delivering the work, which are actually measurable. And I think one more important thing is also the trends analysis from the tools that we have, and also one thing that I would like to highlight from Hidayah's sharing just now is balancing the human connection and online teamwork. So yeah, for sure we have online checks every day, morning calls, making sure and checking in, weekly team meetings, but it's more than that, it's more than that. What I appreciate most about the dynamic experience while working from home is that when we first started, I think August kali, when during the second wave, we actually had a competition of our work from home workspaces and workstations. Wow, I think we contributed a lot to the economy of Brunei at that time by buying a lot of gadgets just to make sure that our workstations are the most canggih one, right? It was exciting, and it was a big prize to be won. Unfortunately, I didn't win, Yeah, and we had virtual team buildings as well. So we missed on those company activities where we all connect over makan-makan. We had team buildings or sports activities that we used to have when we are back in the office. So we went into virtual team buildings, and I would like to give a big shout out to our team over there who actually. Literally, we just challenged them to do virtual team building, and they delivered. They came out with all sorts of creative ideas and competitions and contests that engages us, that make us feel that we are not alone working from home. So that is something that I think is important, and what we have hopefully can contribute to the answer of question 1. So actually, in terms of the agenda for today, we are done. But I think we can take a few questions. Maybe we can take two questions. Oh, right. How to choose, Okay. Right, so we have answered question 1, so we won't choose question 1. And we have also addressed question 2 by controlling or phasing out the digital transformation. So I think we won't take that. Right. The third one. Okay, so with lifting of COVID restrictions, we seem to be going backwards in terms of technology adoption, going back to office instead of working from home, going back to counters instead of online services. Is this good?
Okay. I think this is very closely related to the first question. One thing I think what we all learned that, because it wasn't just work that we had to do at home, even studies went home, was online. And I think if you have smaller kids, you know how challenging it was for us to, we had to work, we had to do meetings, but at the same time you have to manage online learning. It was really, really stressful at that time. I don't know about everybody, that's how I felt in the beginning. And I think this just showed that how everybody are different. They have, on top of work, they also have families. And they also have other lives. And then I think what we saw during the pandemic was either we were able to balance our work and the rest of our life, or there was a blur between that line. So I think here, because now that the more restrictions are being lifted, one thing that we need to understand is that everybody is different. So in terms of personality, in terms of needs, personal commitments, it's all different. Perhaps going online full-time is not the solution, but perhaps we can consider a more flexible working arrangement or working workspace, because work is what you do and not where you are. So as long as you are able to do what you are supposed to do, you are contributing to your organization's goals, KPI, and things like that, wherever you are, then that's good. But at the same time, recognizing that some people are different, some people may require certain flexibilities just because life happens to be different for them compared to others. So I think that's something to be considered, to recognize that human factor when it comes to developing or identifying or defining what a workspace looks like.
Right, thank you, Hidayah. And actually that also leads to question 4, but you want to take another question?
Yeah, may I add on to the previous question?
Right,
okay,
sure.
So basically, in terms of going backwards, in terms of technology, in terms of going back into counter services, okay, so it's a matter of preference as well. Like you said, people are different. But in terms of, it doesn't mean that we should be abandoning the steps forward that we've already taken in terms of opening up online services, opening up virtual ways of doing business, virtual ways of providing service, okay? But as have probably been mentioned repeatedly, digital transformation is not an overnight process. It takes time for the services to evolve, to become more easily acceptable to people, and it also takes time for the people to get used to online services. Okay? So it's a long journey, and change management of both the services and also the people would help. Yeah.
Right, thank you, Hidayah and Wan. So I think that will also address question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th question, right? The 5th question, which will be the last question we address. With the challenges during pandemic, how do you lead your team to ensure success in leading your clients towards digital transformation in addition to the team adapting to such transformation? I think if we can summarize what Wan and Hidayah have been sharing all this while, it all boils down to 2 things, right? Keeping in mind our strategic objectives or our KPIs, and the second one is be mindful of our stakeholders, of our people. And when we marry or when we integrate these 2 things together, it comes down to design thinking, right? So design thinking means that we always put people first in terms of our digital transformation, in terms of our process automation, in terms of planning our strategy, and that actually helps dynamic, and also we hope our clients to plan out the digital transformation journey in an effective and sustainable way. Right, so that actually brings us to the end of today's informal chat. I'd like to thank Wan and Hidayah again. So, and maybe to summarize and close, basically COVID-19 has shown us that we could do it, that we are resilient enough, that we are adaptable enough to take up digital transformation efforts. Of course, we need to think, we need to plan, we need to manage it. But one thing is clear, digital transformation is here to stay. It's no longer an option, it's actually a necessity. And we have more than just survive, right? That brings us back to the topic of today, from survive to thrive. We have survived COVID with digital transformation, some good efforts, some efforts maybe not so successful, but all these are lessons learned for us to craft our next step in the journey. And so we have survived, ladies and gentlemen. Now it is time to thrive. It is time to thrive with digital transformation and make sure that we learn from our lessons during the COVID-19 pandemic and move forward to a brighter future for Brunei. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our distinguished panelists and Mr. Albert for the engaging session, highlighting to us the issues and lessons that were learned from the pandemic and also sharing with us their views on how they survived through it and adapted to the new norm. The last topic for today will be brought to you by Captain Retired Awang Haji Muhammad Amirul Shahnol bin Haji Muhammad Noor, Working Group at Brunei Innovation Lab, BIL. The floor is yours, Tuan Haji Amirul.
Okay, this is the last presentation for today, and as the saying goes, reserve the last for the best. And I hope that we can actually give you a very interesting insight of the presentation this afternoon. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang Mulia Tuan Nazri, SUT, Timbalan SUT, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the talk by the Brunei Innovation Lab, and we call it Redefining the Possible, Driving Digital Technology Development and Entrepreneurships in Brunei Darussalam. Now, before we go deep dive into what this is, we'd like to just give you a backdrop of why this is actually happening. Our innovation ecosystem at the moment is still at the nascent stage, very young stage. And the industry should also take the lead in the innovation and create that impetus for change. And I think we've seen and we've heard throughout this afternoon, industry players coming up here to give you insights and talk about getting that digitalization, transformation, and innovation. But however, when you look into the bigger picture, and when we benchmark Brunei into the global sphere of innovation, the published benchmark from the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, on the Global Innovation Index, we are ranked at 71 amongst 131 countries. And that also gives another insight that the report mentions about that we are generating less innovation output compared to the invested resources that we have, right? And the challenges that there are the technological diffusion, the knowledge and the research and the market sophistication for that to take place here. And also down to the local perspective, majority of the companies are here in Brunei, mostly retail and services. And only a few big companies, multinationals and perhaps government-linked companies that do have that modern high-tech technologies and innovation programs. Again, as the research and the survey that's being done shows that our human capital deployment in IT, graduates mostly working in the IT retail space rather than working into the development of high-tech technology domain. But this is changing. And hence, the government realized and identified that this is actually an impetus, a reason to actually develop the Digital Economy Master Plan that we all have seen and read. And the question is, what is the industry going to do about that? So the industry needs to play a part in developing a conducive corporate innovation ecosystem as well. The Brunei Innovation Lab will catalyze the development of this actual ecosystem. Inspired the community and produce digital champions and entrepreneurship to lead a vibrant and sustainable economy for Brunei Darussalam. So that's what we are trying to achieve. And the why, the Brunei Innovation Lab is to serve as a core innovation platform for the country and to excite new opportunities and to aggregate industry demands for new solutions. So we want to have a platform that can actually accelerate the collaboration between stakeholders, industry players, government regulators, and institution of research together. Also to have the techpreneurs to get a push, to accelerate them, to give them opportunities, to give a holistic developmental program in order for them to be able to capture this opportunity. And lastly, gaps that's existing in the understanding of modern technology. So we want to close that gap by actually introducing technology accelerator programs in order for us to be able to understand better applications, real life problems, problem statements that can be related to the Innovation Lab. Who are we? Right? We are actually a network platform, but we do have the networks extended to businesses, accelerators, government regulators, as we mentioned earlier, research and education, government funding bodies, private funding bodies as well, and also most importantly, the industry. The industry as the champions of driving this innovation. So when we have all that together in one place and talking about the same issues, hopefully we are able then to give that support and to develop the young techpreneurs, small business enterprises, as well as students that's just coming or graduating from colleges and universities. Alhamdulillah, with all that explanation and justification, we have had a good support from the Digital Economy Council, who affirms the establishment of the Brunei Innovation Lab as the core innovation platform for opening up opportunities and combining industry demand and future nurturing of culture of innovation through the creation of sharing of ideas. where are we? As you know, we are now actively renovating the K-Hub, the ground and the first floor. And that's where the new Brunei Innovation Lab will reside, inshallah. Hopefully in July, yeah, it will be completed. What do we do? So we mentioned earlier today that this Innovation Lab is a place where people can actually collaborate, a place where people can actually accelerate dorang punya program from normal digital platform to a more higher level of technology. Yeah? So we do have 3 different pillars or areas of focus. One is that the Brunei Innovation Lab will have a showcase and forum gallery. This is where you will be inspired with all the new technologies that's being brought up by the industry to showcase and to aspire you to have new ideas, new opportunities, and new perspective of how this new technology can be applied. And once you are actually ready and excited and interested, then we will then have this next step, which is the Innovate program, which enable you to be accelerated into that techpreneurship and to be exposed to all these opportunities that's there. But this does not stop there, because to become a startup or a techpreneur, technology-based entrepreneur, you would need also a component of capability accelerator in that actual technology. Yeah? A dedicated program to accelerate your knowledge in the modern technologies within the context of Brunei Darussalam. So, in whole, we aspire you, we train you, and we raise you in order for you to be able to sustain when you go out to the market as a startup or an entrepreneur in the technology domain. So, there are actually 12 key enablers that we have identified. This is based on an opportunity framing session that we've undertaken by a cross-industrial, cross-interagency engagement last year. And we have identified some key components that is critical in order for us to move forward. First is that we need to celebrate the culture of entrepreneurship and give access to the funding across the startup life cycle. Giving a deeper technological, technopreneurship capabilities, as well as to give support when you go to market. Also, to give a support to the innovation ecosystem and garnering government support for this particular innovation efforts together. We will create more clarity of the vision and focus of the technological development in Brunei, and also tapping into the global networks and resources that we have. Investing in digital infrastructure as a foundation, and marketing our success stories to inspire the community so that people are ready to accept new change and moving ahead. But not the least, to get commitment and support from our top leadership, as well as to have a dedicated innovation platform. So, in a nutshell, these 12 are our key enablers in order for the Brunei Innovation Lab to actually be successful. The 10 technology domains that Bill or the Brunei Innovation Lab is looking are the cybersecurity, cloud computing, data analytics, blockchain, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics and automation, AR, VR, digital twinning, and additive manufacturing. So this did not come from from the sky, picking up all this. It was after a session of engagement within the key stakeholders as well as the industry in Brunei. So what is our key success measures for this? Aspirational. We want to have within that 2 years after the launch, at least to develop 5 new technological domains. Blockchain, or is it drones, or digital twinning, but we're looking at 5. And canvassing about 25 new ideas from the community, and 5 new products and service prototypes. And develop 5 new techpreneurs for each domain, and also the subject matter experts. A tall order, but we think that with this, it will drive the lab and the team and the whole ecosystem to something that we can actually focus on, inshallah. So that is all the concepts. Now I would like just to bring you down to ground level on what is it. So we mentioned today we have a showroom, a showcase, and a forum gallery, and it is currently under renovation at the moment. And it is meant to give you the aspirations and new ideas, new perspectives on things. Also, the support program for the technopreneur to enable acceleration of new opportunities development. So these are the phases that we will be providing to service the participants that is going into the Brunei Innovation Lab. The final stage would be the capability accelerator. And this is, again, as I mentioned earlier, looking into the technological component of your capability development. First, we have the industry vendor development program, as well as aggregating techpreneur development program with existing partners that we have. User journey, we have 3 different levels of technical capabilities. Level 1, beginner, level 2, intermediate, and level 3, advanced, where advanced is where you go up, upscaling from the local, national level to regional levels. And finally, this is who we are and what we are. The Brunei Innovation Lab is consisting of 4 strategic partners between Brunei Shell Petroleum, Shell Lifewire, DARE, as well as DST, which agreed to collaborate and to become the strategic partner for the Brunei Innovation Lab. Okay. With that, we have also our ecosystem partners that have, or in current discussion, in terms of identifying opportunities as well as projects. But also, we remember that we want to support and to actually accelerate the entrepreneurs by actually connecting them with also our consultant and our advisors. So we have engaged to about 9 consultants around the region and also in Brunei to be able to give them to render dorang punya service to this techpreneur in order for them to be able to achieve the goals of the aspiration and targets. So without ecosystem, that platform and the amount of access as well as networks that we have, we believe that we are able to get, our local techpreneurs, startup companies from, say, either a zero, inshallah, to become a hero one day. Okay? So that's basically what we wanted to share with you. But before we end the presentation, if you all are interested or have the aspiration to become Brunei's first batch of techpreneur into the Brunei Innovation Lab, please do get that QR code in, register, and we are open that registration as of today. Okay? And finally, just a teaser. So, thank you very much. Inshallah, we will see you in July when the official launch of the Brunei Innovation Lab takes place. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite Tuan Haji Amirul to answer some questions from Slido.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Tuan Haji Amirul. Before we go into the Slido, I actually just have a very quick question. Thanks for sharing with regards to the Brunei Innovation Lab. Just my really quick question is, I noticed that you did mention that it will be launching in July. What's the uptake so far?
So basically, this is the start of opening up of the registration, socializing, opening up to the public, and it will start today onwards. And right up to July, when we have the launch, inshallah, we will have already some identified potential candidates that we would like to go forward for the next stage, where they then be funneled into the actual program itself.
Okay, let's hope that the technopreneurs are listening and will actually take up on this and approach Tuan Haji on this after this conversation. So yes. Let's go into Slido really quickly. The first question we have up here is looking at the 3 pillars that you've actually presented. If an individual or organization came up with a solution concept, how can your organization actually assist?
Okay, so I think this is a very good question, right? Because the mode of operandi, or actually the process of selection as well as development, would come from various stages, various sources as well, right? So in fact, it is based on a selection process whereby we need to understand what are the pain points that they are trying to actually solve in the first place. Whether that makes sense in terms of the demand within our context in Brunei or even in the region, right? So that's one. The second point would be then the concept of the solution can actually be nurtured at certain levels. We mentioned that there was a level 1, level 2, or level 3, depending on how mature their solutions are at that time of submission. So if it's a mature solution that we can take forth, then we will then gauge and put them into a certain level where they can actually go further rather than starting from the baseline.
So leveraging on that, your explanation, So there is a couple of criteria that they basically will have to go through when it's during the evaluation stage. Is that correct?
Yes, there will have to be, yes.
Okay. The next question we have here is, what would you actually consider as a success of Bill?
Well, initially, as you saw in the slides here, we have our success factors, 25 techpreneurs, 5 domains, 25 canvassing programs and whatnot. But I think that is only a transactional target. I think the most real objective of Bill is actually to promote economic vibrancy in Brunei Darussalam, to provide that additional or alternative road pathway for our young entrepreneurs to be able to actually make to not only in Brunei, but also into the regional domain.
So you're actually trying to tap onto the youngsters here, right? For their mind, their innovations.
Well, yeah, and if you go back to the third slide, the 3 target areas that we are looking at are, it's not based on age, is based on sectors. We have the techpreneurship, the techpreneurs, I mean that is the startup companies. We also open up to existing small and medium enterprises. That means those people who are already in the business of, say, software development application at the moment, that wants to go further to probably access to artificial intelligence, for instance. So this is also another group of people. But again, yes, you're right. Youngsters, students are also included into this platform.
Okay, so that's a good platform for anybody who's actually looking towards a new future. In a sense, if they have a lot of ideas in their mind, this would be something that they should leverage on and go into for a platform.
Yes, correct. And in actual putting that something on something that's tangible, not us just sitting down and thinking about it, but sitting down, sharing it with those people who is in the know, who are able to actually bring this idea up to a commercialization stage if needs be.
I believe I do know some people who's actually got a lot of inspirations and a lot of innovations. Maybe these people can leverage on that. That brings me to our next question. The 10 focus areas that you've actually presented, I think it was in one of the slides, I can't remember the number. Are they, sorry, it has gone up to, yes. Are these fixed or the technology that may be potentially considered?
A very good question, again, because that's the first question that we've asked ourselves. What are the areas that we actually need to focus on our resources? And by doing an engagement with the stakeholders, as well as the industry, these are seemingly to be the top 10. And not to say that it's fixed. It will be an iterative process down the line as market change, as the economies of the region will change. This may also change in the process.
Yeah, I think this 10 seems to be the more popular topics currently at this moment.
Yeah, correct.
And that brings me to my last question. Actually, no, there's 2 more questions. How different is this from LiveWire and DARE's setup assistance?
We call it soalan cupu emas lah. So I think this is a very important question that needs to be addressed and to be clarified. The reason why you see LiveWire, DARE, DST, as well as BSP coming together is that we identify that each other have their strength as well as their gaps and weaknesses. So in order for us to be able to consolidate that resources, best is to work together into a platform. So maybe LiveWire would be good in the entrepreneurship or agri-food area, whilst there is in the food and beverages and whatnot, or even digital application for that matter. So that is one thing, to get the synergy out of this company. But it is also different target objectives at the end of the day, because LiveWire and Dare are looking into what it is now, F&B. You're looking into digital application punya development, software, apps, and whatnot. But Bill will be looking into artificial intelligence, blockchains, the the virtual reality and all that, which needs a component of technology to be injected into that particular platform for it to be understood and to be optimized for that to be developed forward. So I think that's the differentiation. And we've agreed that that is the line where we've actually drawn between Dare and Bill.
Sounds good to me. That sounds like more like a multi-stakeholder that's involved rather than just individually and towards the future trying to help people innovate and also to help them on their ideas.
Yeah, correct.
Now, I think that's quite similar. The next question is actually also quite similar. Is Bill replacing iCenter for startup, or is it an extension of it?
Again, this goes back to probably the DNA of what Bill is and what iCenter is at the moment. And again, at the moment, the discussion, because there is also part of Bill, and again, the proactiveness and the engagement between Dare and Bill is defined, right? So one of the key components that was been highlighted by the Digital Economy Council is that there should be no duplication, right? And that's what we are trying to do. We supplement each other. Perhaps the way that it will go later when Bill is already matured, you have a pipeline from the iCenter, from the early development stage, and when they are ready to go to the higher level of technology, they will just jump to the next building, and that is where you get that exposure.
Very convenient that all three of you are very much, you guys are all together in just next to each other. The last question we have for today is, does Bill act as Brunei's equivalent of GovTech of Singapore, which acts as technology enablers for government agencies and private sectors?
I probably reserve this question to
tricky question.
The regulators and the policymakers here. But what I can say here is the makeup of Bill itself, it's all from the private sector, right? They don't have regulatory mandate, and that is, I think, what is a advantage of that is that you are actually more flexible to go to spaces where it is, it requires innovative, but we are very close, and we have a very strong link with AITI, MTIC, the Smart Nation Office is also frequently being part of our discussion to align that discussion moving forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Tuan Haji, for your time today taken to come and present to us about Bill. Any technopreneurs who are actually interested, please do hop on the wagon and contact Tuan Haji with regards to wanting to. Is the contact details anywhere on the slide?
Yeah, I think it's good to get to the QR code. The QR code. All there.
Yes, please do scan the QR code if you're interested.
Yeah.
And then, yes. Thank you very much, Tuan Haji. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Tuan Haji Amirul, for sharing with us on how to drive the digital technology development in Brunei Darussalam. Alhamdulillah, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for your participation and attendance for today's conference. We hope you enjoy today's program and events organized throughout the week. With that, we end with Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.